The sun beat down on her cracked, dirt-covered skin as she crouched behind the rusted chicken coop, chewing slowly on a handful of damp grass. Her name, as far as the village knew, was Lena, a silent girl who wandered into the outskirts of Gironda when she was barely 6, barefoot and mute. No one knew where she came from. No one asked. They simply let her exist like the broken fences and the dying goats, forgotten by everyone except the earth she slept on. The villagers thought she was mentally slow. She never spoke, never smiled. Only stared. Her matted hair stuck to her forehead like mud, and her thin arms wrapped around her stomach each night like they were the only warmth she had. She scavenged, she begged, she ate whatever animals left behind, rotten corn, lizard bones. Once she was caught sucking water from a cracked pipe near the dump. The children laughed at her, called her goat girl. She didn't react, not once. 16 years passed like that. She grew tall, wiry and strange, eyes too sharp for someone slow, movements too calculated, but by then no one cared. She was just part of the background. That weird mute girl who picked trash, slept in abandoned sheds, and always disappeared when the cops came around. But something changed the day the foreigners arrived. It was just after the monsoon. The road to Gironda had finally cleared when a black SUV pulled up, shining and out of place like a spaceship had landed in a place where even shoes were a luxury. 3 people stepped out, clean, pale-skinned, dressed like they'd never sweated a day in their life. One of them was holding a photograph, faded, creased in the middle, like it had been held 1,000 times. They started asking questions. "Have you seen this child?" She'd be about 22 now. She disappeared at 6. Name's Alina Hanover. The villagers shook their heads. Some peered at the photo out of curiosity, then looked back at the girl sitting under the neem tree with flies buzzing around her. And for the first time in years, someone looked at her. Really looked. It was the scar above her left eyebrow that gave it away. Faint, but unmistakable. The same jagged mark that had been in the photo. The same one on the missing girl posters that had once flooded Europe. A scar from falling off a horse. The woman holding the photo dropped it. "That's her," she whispered. That's my niece." Suddenly the air shifted. The villagers looked at Lena with wide eyes. Shock, confusion, fear, as if she'd been an illusion this whole time, a ghost in plain sight. And Lena, who hadn't spoken in 16 years, looked straight at them and said in perfect English, "Took you long enough." The words were like thunder in the silence. Some people gasped, others backed away. The woman who claimed to be her aunt burst into tears, collapsing into the arms of a man in a crisp suit. The child eating grass was a missing heiress, a child who had once slept on silk sheets and dined on silverware. What had happened to her? Where had she been? And how the hell had no one recognized her until now? But Alina, or Lena, just stood up, wiped the dirt off her knees, and walked toward them. No tears, no emotion, just a look in her eyes that said, "You have no idea what I've been through, and maybe you never will." The first night away from Gironda was suffocating. They put her in a hotel with air conditioning, satin sheets, and food that didn't smell like sewage. But Alina didn't touch any of it. She sat on the floor, knees pulled to her chest, eyes flicking between corners like someone expecting to be dragged out again. Every knock on the door made her flinch. Every sudden sound felt like it could be a punishment. Her aunt, Claudia Hanover, hovered awkwardly near the mini fridge, whispering on her phone to someone from the embassy. Her voice trembled, a weird mix of guilt and relief. "She's alive. Yes, I'm sure. It's her, but she's not the same." Damn right she wasn't. Alina watched Claudia with cold, narrowed eyes, this woman who claimed to love her, who'd come all this way, who wore diamonds on her wrist while Alina used to steal dog food just to survive. Nobody asked her how she got there, nobody dared. They just assumed she was lost, kidnapped, maybe wandered off. The press would soon spin a tale of survival, the miraculous return of the heiress who vanished. But Alina hadn't been lost. She had been thrown away. It wasn't until they brought her passport, the DNA test results, and a formal invitation back to London that the truth even began to unravel. She was Alina Rose Hanover, daughter of Richard and Marianne Hanover, billionaire, philanthropists, owners of Hanover International. She went missing during a charity gala in Mumbai. 1 second she was playing near the garden. The next gone, no ransom, no leads, no suspects. Her mother died a year later in a car accident. Her father fell into depression, then died of a heart attack. Everyone believed the girl was dead. But she wasn't. "I remember," she said finally on the third night as Claudia sat across from her. "He told me I was too loud, that I talked too much, that I needed to be taught silence." Claudia froze. "Who, sweetheart?" Alina blinked slowly. "My father's business partner, Charles." Claudia gasped. "Charles Wexley? He was at the gala the night you disappeared." "I know," she said. "He was the one who took me." The silence after that was thick. Alina turned her head and stared out the window. "I told them, the village people, years ago, but no one spoke English. They just thought I was crazy." Claudia's face drained of color. Her lips trembled. "Why didn't he kill you?" Alina's voice was flat. "Because he was smart. He didn't want a body. He wanted erasure. He wanted me gone. And he had succeeded. 16 years in poverty. 16 years in silence. She had been dumped outside a train station, drugged, and disoriented with a note in Hindi pinned to her back. "Orphan, useless, take her if you want." The people of Girunda didn't want her, but they didn't throw her away either. They just let her rot quietly. She had learned how to beg, how to sleep with one eye open, how to steal enough not to get caught, how to survive. She hadn't cried in 10 years, not until now. Claudia reached forward. "Alina, we'll bring him down. We'll make him pay." "No," she said, her voice dark and steady. "I will." The press was waiting. The world was already calling it the return of the lost. HEIRESS. Headlines were exploding, offers for interviews, movie deals, books. But Alina didn't care about any of that. She didn't want fame. She wanted revenge. She wanted Charles Wexley to feel what she had felt. Abandoned, powerless, forgotten, but first, she had to play along, act broken, let them think she was just a traumatized girl learning to heal. They didn't know she had spent 16 years, sharpening her mind like a blade. And now, she was ready to cut. The plane to London was quieter than she expected. They'd given her a private jet, 2 security guards, a therapist. Even Claudia sat a few rows behind, giving her space, like she was some kind of glass doll that might shatter under pressure. But Alina didn't feel fragile. She felt alert, razor sharp. Like her body was finally catching up with her mind. She hadn't slept in 2 days. Sleep invited dreams. And her dreams? Always the same. A hand covering her mouth, the smell of sweat and cologne, the whispers, "Be a good girl, don't scream." Then darkness, silence, hunger. She looked out the window at the clouds as they drifted below, her reflection faint in the glass. 17 countries, hundreds of orphanages, investigators, helicopters, psychics. None of them had found her. But a photo in a village finally had. Or maybe she had allowed herself to be found. Maybe now was simply the right time. When the jet landed at Heathrow, she was swarmed. Not by people, not yet, by memories, the cold, the language, the smell of polished wood and designer perfume. She remembered these things, faintly, like colors in a fading painting. A chauffeur was waiting with a sign, "Welcome home, Alina." She ignored him. She looked to the far corner of the terminal, where a figure leaned against the wall, hoodie up, arms crossed. He stepped forward as she passed, and for a second she stopped breathing. "Long time," he said. She blinked. "Kian?" He nodded once. Kian was her only friend before she vanished, the gardener's son, a boy she used to sneak cookies with, the one who taught her how to climb trees and steal peaches from the estate kitchen. He had been 11 the last time she saw him. Now he looked grown, taller, harder, like London had punched him in the face a few times, and he'd punched back harder. "What are you doing here?" when she asked. "Your aunt called me. Said you might need someone who remembers the real you." For the first time since being found, Alina almost smiled, but Kian's face darkened as he leaned in. You remember what they did, don't you? Every second, she said. Good. Then you should also know Charles Wexley is now CEO of Hanover International. Her stomach turned. Of course he was. The bastard didn't just erase her. He'd taken her place, her legacy, her father's company, the family name. He'd wrapped himself in the ruin of what he destroyed. And Claudia, she asked quietly. She signed off on it. Said the board needed stability after your father died. Alina's fingers curled into fists. They'd buried her memory and built a kingdom on her grave. Not anymore. They took her back to the mansion, what used to be her home. The gates opened like jaws, swallowing her in silence. The marble floors were polished to perfection. Portraits of dead men lined the halls, but nothing looked familiar. The staff was different. The air felt fake. Only one thing remained. Her old bedroom, locked and untouched, as if her ghost had been living there all along. Toys, drawings, a dusty rocking horse. She stared at the mirror across the room. The little girl in her memory was gone. Now there was only this, a woman forged by hunger, sharpened by betrayal, and returned from the dead. That night, as Claudia poured wine and made empty speeches about healing and moving on, Alina quietly excused herself. She opened her laptop, created a new file. Target, Charles Wexley. She began typing every memory, every timeline, every detail she could weaponize, and then she added a second name. Target 2, Claudia Hanover, because forgiveness wasn't part of the plan. And Alina wasn't here to recover. She was here to burn it all down. 3 days after her return, Alina appeared at a Hanover International board meeting, not by invitation, by announcement. Claudia tried to stop her at the doors. You're not ready for this, darling. It's too soon. Alina brushed past without a word, dressed in black slacks, a high-neck blouse, and no jewelry, like a silent declaration that she was there for war, not appearances. The boardroom was full. 12 men and women sat behind. Thick oak tables, all dressed like wealth and deceit. At the head sat Charles Wexley, still smug after all these years. His once dark hair had faded into silver, but his predatory grin hadn't aged a day. He stood when he saw her, faux surprise dripping off his tongue. Alina, you look... Well, her voice cut through the room like a blade. You look like you've been stealing from the dead. A gasp somewhere in the back. Claudia flushed pale, mouthing silently for her to stop. But Alina had already stepped forward, pulling a small envelope from her bag. DNA results. Publicly filed. Legally notarized. I am Alina Rose Hanover, sole heir to Richard and Marianne Hanover. This company was entrusted to my family. Not to a parasite, the board murmured, unsettled. Wexley smiled, but his eyes flicked with something else now. Panic. He stood, trying to control the room with that familiar voice of calm manipulation. Alina, let's not turn this into a circus. You've been through something traumatic. Let us help you. Help me. She tilted her head, like you did when you shoved me into a stranger's car and told me my parents didn't love me anymore. He froze. The room went dead silent. She stepped closer. I remember your watch, she whispered. Gold, scratched on the side. You told me to be quiet or they'd hurt my mum. I believed you. I pissed myself from fear. You laughed. Charles blinked. For the first time his lips parted, but no words came. I may not have power yet, she continued, but I have memory, I have scars, and soon I'll have this company. Then she turned and walked out, leaving fire behind her. Later that night, Kian slipped through the garden gate of the estate, wearing the same old smug half-smile he'd had as a kid. But this time, he brought files. Wexley's got offshore accounts, he said, flipping through folders. Shell. Companies in Cyprus, Panama, and the Cayman Islands, all draining Hanover assets. Alina leaned over the desk, scanning the documents. Every number, every name, it all confirmed what she suspected. He wasn't just corrupt. He was hollowing the legacy. Claudia signed off on most of it, Kian added grimly. She's not innocent in this. I never thought she was, Alina muttered. She didn't lose me. She sold me. Kian frowned. You sure you want to go this route? This is war, Alina. No one leaves clean. She looked him in the eye. I haven't been clean since I was 6. The next morning, Claudia tried to play mother again. I thought we could go shopping. Maybe something warm. Your wardrobe. I need something else, Alina interrupted, sipping tea slowly. What's that? A criminal lawyer. Claudia froze. Why? Alina set down her cup and smiled for the first time in days. Because I'm pressing charges. Kidnapping, fraud, embezzlement. Claudia's eyes widened. Alina, think carefully. If you do this, you'll destroy the family name. There is no family, she replied. There's only survivors. And Claudia knew then, Alina was no longer the little girl they buried under silence and dust. She was fire. And fire didn't forgive. The news broke within 48 hours. Missing. Heiress Alina Hanover returns, accuses CEO Charles Wexley of kidnapping. Some called it a scandal. Others called it a hoax. But no one ignored it. The name Alina Hanover was back and louder than ever. Talk shows, podcasts, headlines, all chewing on every word she uttered in a carefully leaked video recorded by Kian. I didn't get lost, I was discarded. The video went viral in minutes. Charles Wexley didn't respond, not publicly, but privately. He began to move. It started with a shadow. One night, Alina caught a man in a black coat watching the estate from across the street. He didn't run when she looked, just stood there like a reminder, like a warning. Kian chased him, came back 10 minutes later with nothing but a ripped cuff and a bleeding lip. Professional, he said. No phone, no ID, just gone. Alina didn't flinch. She expected this. When you threatened a king's throne, you didn't get silence, you got snakes. The next attack wasn't physical, it was psychological. A headline appeared. Alina Hanover may be imposter. Insider claims girl was found in village known for child fraud. Below it, a photo of her eating grass as a teenager. They used it. The worst part of her, the lowest. She stared at it for a full minute before closing the laptop. Claudia came into the room, visibly shaken. They're going to destroy you. You don't understand how dirty this world is. Alina looked at her like she was glass. No, Aunt Claudia. You don't understand. I was a child chewing bark to stay alive. Nothing they publish will ever make me feel smaller than I already have. That night she didn't sleep. She worked. She and Kian built a timeline, a plan, a counterattack. They tracked Wexley's trips, his emails, his sudden asset transfers. And finally, something clicked. An account, Nacetech Holdings, had received millions from Hanover International. On paper, it was an innovation project. In reality, it was a ghost company owned by a Wexley alias, Darren Knox. That's when Kian smiled. We can bring this to the press, the board, the damn queen, if we have to. Alina's voice was calm, steady. Not yet. We don't let them see the sword until it's already in their chest. But Wexley wasn't sitting idle. The next morning, a lawyer showed up with papers, a cease and desist. Mr. Wexley is filing defamation, the man said. He's also challenging your claim to inheritance based on mental instability and suspicious reappearance. Alina signed nothing. She said nothing. But inside, a storm began to swirl. The man was going to erase her again, this time with ink and lies instead of a vanishing car. Later, she stood in the garden where she once played as a child. She remembered the swing her father built. The roses her mother planted, gone now, just trimmed hedges and sterile design. Do you really want to do this the hard way? Kian asked quietly behind her. She turned to him. You remember what I used to say when we played hide and seek? He nodded. I never lose, I just wait long enough to make you think you won. Alina smiled without warmth. Exactly. She was done waiting. The first trap came softly. No headlines, no screaming, no drama. Just a quiet knock on the door of Rhys Merton, Charles Wexley's long-time personal accountant. A man who had been handling Charles's shady finances for years. A man with secrets stacked in folders and guilt, soaked into every cup of coffee he drank alone. And when that knock came, it wasn't a journalist. It was Kian. Rhys didn't recognize him at first, but the name Alina Hanover changed his expression. from suspicion to full-blown fear. "I'm not involved," he said instantly, voice cracking. "I just did the books, whatever he told me. I didn't know she was still alive." Kian sat across from him, calm. "Then now's your chance to put it right." Rhys hesitated, chewing the inside of his cheek like it held the answer. "He'll ruin me. You don't know what Charles is capable of." "I do," Kian said. "Alina does too. 16 years of it." Rhys poured himself a glass of whiskey. With trembling hands, "I have everything, bank statements, internal reports, emails, I kept them. Just in case." "In case what?" Kian asked. "In case he ever did to me what he did to her." 2 hours later, Rhys delivered a hard drive to Alina's estate. Inside it, proof of decades of embezzlement, shell company transfers, and, buried deep, multiple payments labeled consulting fee wired to a private security firm in India. Just days after Alina vanished, she watched the files in silence, then smiled like someone remembering the taste of blood. "Burn him slowly," she whispered. The next day, Alina made her second move, a press conference, live, no notes, no script. Just her standing in front of the Hanover building where Charles now held office, dressed in all white, simple, spotless, and untouchable. "I am Alina Rose Hanover. For 16 years I lived in filth, fear, and silence because one man thought he could erase me. But I survived. I remember. And I have proof." She held up a flash drive. "This contains financial crimes committed by Charles Wexley while he acted as guardian of Hanover International. Crimes my aunt, Claudia Hanover, failed to investigate or stop." The cameras exploded. She didn't wait for questions. She turned and walked off. Kian met her at the car, grinning. "You just slapped a hornet's nest." "I know," she said. "Now let's watch them sting each other." And they did. That night, the boardroom split. Some demanded Wexley step down pending investigation. Others insisted Alina was lying for attention. Stocks wobbled. Lawyers screamed. Claudia disappeared into silence, her phone off, her PR team quiet. But the most delicious moment? A leak. An anonymous whistleblower, Rhys, sent the hard drive to 4 media outlets. By sunrise, headlines were everywhere. "Charles Wexley under fire. Missing heiress exposes massive fraud." Did Hanover's CEO kidnap his own partner's daughter? Justice or vengeance? The heiress speaks out. Wexley responded the only way cowards do, with fear. He filed an injunction, hired private security, fled the city. But Alina was already 10 steps ahead. "He's going to run," she told Kian, watching a news anchor stutter through legal jargon. "And if he runs, we drag him back." "How?" he asked. "We follow the money. Wherever he goes, his secrets go too." Kian raised a brow. "You want to chase him?" "No," she said with a grin. "I want to trap him, and now we bait the last hook." She pulled open a drawer and revealed the last piece of her arsenal, her childhood journal, blood-stained, torn at the edges, but intact. Inside, names, places, descriptions, everything she'd witnessed as a child. Including the night he whispered the threat that would haunt her for years. "No one will look for you, little girl, because I already made them forget you." Charles Wexley ran like a man who knew the walls were closing in. He didn't hold a press conference, didn't even bother with a statement. One day he was the untouchable CEO of Hanover International. The next, his office was empty, his phone was disconnected, and his penthouse was wiped clean like he'd never lived there. At all. But Alina knew exactly where to find him, not physically, financially. Kian tracked the movement first, through crypto wallets, dummy invoices, and bounced transfers. A private jet left from a hangar outside London with no flight plan submitted. No passenger list. Just one man with money and fear stitched into every breath. 3 days later, Charles was in Zurich, hiding in a health retreat used by tax-evading billionaires. But Alina didn't send police. She sent memories. Through the help of international press, her team leaked snippets of her journal, passages, describing the night of her abduction. His cologne, his voice, his watch. Quotes he never imagined anyone remembered, word for word. And it worked. Charles started calling people, desperate, begging. He tried to bribe Reese first, then the journalists, then even Claudia, offering her a slice of his offshore fortune to make this all disappear. But it was too late. The pressure was mounting. The public was turning. One of his old associates flipped under threat of prosecution, confirming Charles had paid men in India to dispose of an inconvenient liability. And just like that, the final domino tilted. Interpol issued a formal warrant. Charles Wexley was now officially a wanted man, but Alina wasn't finished, because while the world chased him, she made her final move, reclaiming Hanover International. The board held an emergency vote. Half the members had been silenced by her evidence. The other half were simply too terrified of their own reputations, and when the gavel fell, it was unanimous. Alina Rose Hanover was reinstated as the rightful CEO. She stood at the top of the corporate tower that once belonged to her father, her mother, her stolen life. And she didn't smile. She didn't cry. She simply looked out over the city and whispered, "I am not your survivor. I am your reckoning." But there was one last thread to cut. Claudia. She'd gone quiet throughout. The storm, locking herself away in some coastal villa in Spain, pretending not to watch the chaos unfold. But Alina found her anyway. She didn't come with lawyers. She came alone. They sat across from each other in a glass sunroom, two women dressed in cold stares and buried bloodlines. "I didn't know," Claudia said, her voice brittle. "Yes." "You did," Alina replied. "I thought he was protecting the company. I thought your father—" Alina cut her off. "You thought I was expendable." A silence settled. Then Claudia broke down, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I missed you every day, but I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't think you were still out there. You didn't look." Alina leaned in. "You don't get forgiveness, but you get freedom. I won't come for you. I won't ruin you. But I'll make sure the world knows you did nothing when I vanished, that you stayed quiet when the walls bled, and you'll carry that weight for the rest of your life." She stood and walked away. She didn't look back. Because she wasn't the girl who needed closure. She was the woman who took it. The courtroom was silent as the judge read the verdict. Guilty. Charles Wexley, the man who orchestrated Alina's disappearance, the man who embezzled billions, manipulated a grieving empire and wore a father's trust like a costume, was sentenced to life in prison without parole. The room didn't erupt. It didn't need to. The silence was enough. Alina sat in the front row, her hands clasped loosely in her lap, dressed in black again, no jewelry, no press smile. Just calm, composed, watchful. Charles looked at her once as they led him away in cuffs. Not with anger, with fear. The kind of fear only survivors could teach. After the trial, reporters swarmed, microphones aimed like weapons. "Miss Hanover, do you feel justice has been served? Do you forgive him? What's next for the girl who came back from the dead?" She gave one answer, short and sharp. "I'm not the girl who came back. I'm the woman who returned. There's a difference." And she walked away. No more interviews, no tell-all memoir, no Netflix deal. She went back to the house her parents once built, walked the old garden where her childhood died, and burned the journal that carried her pain, not because she was erasing it, because she no longer needed it. Kian was waiting on the back porch with 2 glasses of wine. They didn't speak much. They never had to. He handed her the glass and raised his. "To what's next?" She tilted her head. "What is next?" "Peace," he said, "or revenge. Your choice." She thought about it. She thought about building back the company, creating shelters for missing children, funding trauma recovery programs, rewriting the system that let monsters hide behind money. Or she could burn it all down. But for the first time in years, she didn't feel like burning. She felt tired. She felt free. So she leaned back, watched the stars, and whispered, "Let's start with peace." Kian looked over. "And after that?" A small smile crept across her lips. "Then maybe I'll ruin someone else." They both laughed. The kind of laugh that only comes when your life has finally, painfully, beautifully. returned to your own hands. And somewhere far away behind cold steel bars, Charles Wexley sat in the dark. No lawyers, no empire, no one. Just the memory of the girl he thought was gone, and the woman who proved she never would be.